The office hummed with the quiet buzz of 100 computers and the soft tap-tap of keyboards. Oliver sat at his desk, a neat stack of papers beside his monitor, his eyes fixed on the screen. He was a creature of habit, his days flowing in a predictable rhythm of spreadsheets and reports. Across the wide, open-plan floor, a few rows over, sat Liam. Oliver knew Liam's name, of course, and that he worked in a different department, something about client relations. Their paths crossed in the kitchen sometimes, a quick nod, a mumbled morning. In meetings, they might exchange a glance, but never a real conversation. Liam, meanwhile, was wrestling with a tricky email, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was usually a bit more outgoing than Oliver, but the office environment often made him retreat into his own world of tasks. He'd seen Oliver around, a quiet guy with a serious face. He figured Oliver was just one of those people who preferred to keep to themselves, and Liam respected that. He had his own work to do, his own deadlines to meet. Their interactions were polite but brief, like two ships passing in the digital sea of their workplace. Neither of them felt a need to change this unspoken agreement. The office was a place for work, not for deep conversations. They were co-workers, nothing more, nothing less. This quiet understanding had defined their relationship for months, a comfortable distance maintained without effort. The afternoon wore on, the office still humming with its predictable rhythm. Oliver decided to grab a quick coffee, a small break from his numbers. He stood up, stretched, and headed towards the elevators. Just as the doors opened, he saw Liam step inside, probably on his way to a meeting on a different floor. They exchanged their usual quick nod, the silent acknowledgement of two familiar strangers. Oliver stepped in, pressing the button for the ground floor. Liam pressed a button a few floors above. The doors slid shut with a soft whoosh, and the elevator began its smooth descent. A moment later, the gentle hum of the elevator died. The lights flickered once, twice, and then plunged the small space into complete darkness. The sudden silence was thick, heavy, and startling. Oliver felt a jolt, not from the elevator, but from the unexpected change. He heard a soft sound from Liam, a little surprised gasp, perhaps. The air felt colder, heavier. All the familiar office sounds, the gentle buzz, the keyboard clicks, the distant chatter, were gone. Only the echo of their breathing filled the sudden void. They were just two figures in the dark, caught in a suspended metal box. The comfortable distance they usually kept was suddenly gone, replaced by a shared, unexpected predicament. The darkness that swallowed the elevator was absolute, heavy. Just when Oliver's eyes began to strain, trying to find any shape in the void, a sharp, metallic clunk echoed through the small box. The elevator shuddered violently, then stopped with a sudden, jarring lurch that threw them both off balance. Oliver stumbled forward, catching himself against the cold metal wall. He heard Liam bump against the opposite side, a soft oof escaping his lips. Silence returned, even deeper than before, broken only by the slight creak of the cables above them. The air grew still and cool, carrying a faint scent of old oil and dust. They were completely stuck, suspended somewhere between the 4th and 5th floors, or maybe the 3rd and 4th. There was no way to tell. Oliver instinctively reached for his phone, but the screen remained stubbornly black, a useless slab of glass and metal in the sudden blackout. He could feel the slight tilt of the elevator car, a subtle shift that reminded him they were no longer on solid ground. This wasn't just a temporary power cut. They were truly trapped. The comfortable office routine felt a million miles away, replaced by the unsettling reality of their predicament. Just as the heavy reality of being truly stuck settled in, a faint click sounded from above. A soft, yellow glow flickered to life in the ceiling, then steadied, casting a dim, uneasy light. It wasn't much, but it cut through the total darkness, painting the small elevator car in shades of weak amber. In this faint light, Oliver could finally see Liam. He was leaning against the back wall, his figure a stark silhouette against the slightly brighter panel behind him. Liam's outline was clear, but his face remained shadowed, unreadable. Oliver realized Liam could probably only see his own shape too, a dark form leaning by the control panel. The emergency light made the small space seem even smaller, highlighting the polished metal walls and the narrow gap of the doors. Dust motes danced in the weak glow, suddenly visible in the usually pristine elevator. The air still felt cool, but now there was a visual to go with the cold, isolated feeling. They were two silent statues, their shapes carved out by the weak, flickering glow, trapped together in a metal box that felt miles away from the busy world they knew. The emergency light, though dim, made their shared predicament suddenly very real. The emergency light cast a pale, yellowish glow, but it did little to chase away the heavy silence. Oliver and Liam stood, or rather leaned, in their respective spots, their shapes vague and indistinct. The only sound was a low, almost imperceptible hum from the elevator machinery, a ghostly echo of its former purpose. It was the kind of quiet that stretched, that made every second feel longer than it should. Oliver felt the awkwardness settle in like a physical weight. What do you say to someone you barely know when you're trapped in a metal box? His mind raced, trying to find the right words, but nothing seemed to fit the strange situation. He cleared his throat softly, but no words followed. Liam, on his side of the elevator, shifted his weight. Oliver could sense his presence, a quiet figure just meters away, yet they felt miles apart. The air was thick with unspoken questions, with the unfamiliarity of their shared predicament. This wasn't a meeting where polite smiles and brief work talk were enough. This was something else entirely, a forced closeness that neither of them knew how to navigate. The silence wasn't just quiet. It was a barrier, taller and more solid than any office partition. Each tick of the invisible clock only made it grow heavier, more uncomfortable. The stretching silence grew unbearable. Oliver felt a desperate need to fill the void, to break the heavy quiet that pressed in on them. He took a deep breath, the stale air feeling thick in his lungs. His voice, when it finally came out, sounded a little rough and used. "So, Liam," he started, his gaze fixed on Liam's shadowed silhouette. "Did you get that report from marketing finished? The one for the Q3 review?" It was a mundane question, a simple work-related query, but it felt like a monumental effort. It was safe, familiar ground, a topic that required no personal sharing, just a professional response. He hoped it wasn't too abrupt, too odd, given their current predicament. He just needed to say something, anything, to puncture the suffocating quiet. The tension in the small space was almost visible, a taut string vibrating in the dim light. He waited, his heart thumping a little faster than usual, wondering if Liam would even answer, or if the silence would simply swallow his words whole. It was a small, hesitant step, but it was a step nonetheless, away from the quiet that had held them captive. A moment of suspense hung in the air after Oliver's question. Then Liam's voice, surprisingly clear, cut through the quiet. "Yeah, I sent it this morning," Liam replied, his silhouette shifting slightly. "Hope it's got everything they need. Marketing can be picky." Oliver let out a small breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Tell me about it," he said, a hint of a smile touching his lips even though he knew Liam couldn't see it. "They always want more data, more projections." They talked about the report for a few more minutes, a comfortable, shared complaint about the demands of their jobs. Then Liam chuckled softly. "Funny, isn't it? Trapped in an elevator, and we're still talking about work." Oliver agreed, a small laugh escaping him too. "What else is there to talk about?" he asked, then immediately felt a little foolish. But Liam didn't seem to mind. "Well," Liam began, his tone a little more thoughtful now, "I was actually heading out to meet a friend for dinner. Supposed to try that new Italian place downtown." He sighed. "Guess that's all for now." "Oh," Oliver said, a little surprised by the personal detail. "That sounds nice. I was just going to grab some coffee." He paused, then added, "I don't usually go out much after work." And just like that, the conversation had turned, slowly but surely, away from the safe harbor of work. As the minutes ticked by, the talk drifted further from work. Liam asked Oliver what he usually did for fun. Oliver, who rarely thought about such things in the office, hesitated. "I like to read," he finally offered, feeling a bit silly. "Old science fiction, mostly." Liam's silhouette straightened a little. "No way. Me too. Have you read any of the Foundation series?" Oliver's head snapped up, a genuine surprise lighting his eyes in the dim light. "All of them. I just reread Second Foundation last month." He couldn't believe it. He'd never met anyone at work who shared his love for Asimov. They spent the next while excitedly discussing their favorite authors and plot twists. Then, the topic turned to food. Liam mentioned his love for trying new, spicy dishes. "I'm always looking for the spiciest curry," he laughed. Oliver, to his own astonishment, found himself agreeing. I once spent a whole weekend trying to make a perfect chili. Ended up sweating for 2 days, but it was worth it." Liam let out a hearty laugh. "That's amazing. I thought I was the only one who did crazy food experiments." A comfortable feeling began to grow between them, a warmth that had nothing to do with the chilly air of the elevator. They found common ground in books, in food, in small quirks they thought no one else shared. The walls that had been between them for so long started to crumble, replaced by a surprising sense of connection. The small, enclosed space of the elevator remained chilly, the metallic walls radiating a steady coolness that seeped into their clothes. The emergency light above cast a stark, almost sterile glow, doing little to make the environment feel welcoming. Yet, despite the cold, the atmosphere inside the elevator was changing. Each story shared, each laugh exchanged, added a layer of warmth. Oliver found himself leaning forward slightly, forgetting the stiff posture he usually held at work. Liam, too, seemed to relax, his silhouette losing its rigid edge. They spoke about silly childhood memories, about places they dreamed of visiting, and even about small, embarrassing moments that usually stayed locked away. The cold, sterile surroundings seemed to fade into the background as their voices filled the space. The emergency light, which at first felt so dim and isolating, now seemed to highlight their growing connection. It was as if their words were tiny flames, chasing away the chill, creating a bubble of comfort in the suspended metal box. The contrast was striking. The cold, unmoving elevator and the vibrant, flowing warmth of their unexpected conversation. The stillness of the elevator, once a source of deep unease, had transformed into a gentle, almost peaceful quiet. It was no longer an empty void, but a space filled with their voices, their shared history, and their growing connection. Liam was recounting a hilarious incident from his college days, involving a questionable cooking experiment and a fire alarm. Oliver listened, genuinely amused, a smile playing on his lips. And then Liam finished, his voice shaking with laughter. "The fire department showed up, and my roommate was trying to explain that it was just a very ambitious omelet." Oliver burst out laughing, a sound that felt oddly loud in the enclosed space, but was quickly joined by Liam's own hearty chuckle. The sound of their laughter bounced off the cold metal walls, but instead of echoing emptily, it seemed to fill the space with a soft, comforting warmth. They exchanged more stories, each one peeling back another layer of the polite, professional masks they wore at work. Oliver found himself telling Liam about his first disastrous attempt at building a bookshelf, a tale usually reserved for close family. Liam, in turn, confessed his secret passion for terrible B-movies, complete with dramatic reenactments of alien dialogue. In this quiet, suspended world, without the rush of deadlines or the pressure of office appearances, they found a simple, human comfort in each other's presence. The shared laughter, the easy flow of conversation, made the uncomfortable cold and the endless wait less daunting. They were just two people sharing stories, finding solace in the unexpected companionship. As Liam was dramatically describing a scene from a particularly bad monster movie, the emergency light above them flickered. It dimmed for a second, then brightened, casting their silhouettes into sharper relief before softening again. The small interruption made them both pause, their laughter fading slightly. "Still holding on, barely," Liam commented, looking up at the light. "Just like us," Oliver replied, a wry smile on his face. The flickering added to the strange, dreamlike quality of their situation. It was as if the outside world was completely gone, leaving them in their own little pocket of time and space. Each time the light wavered, it reminded them of their isolation, yet it also reinforced the feeling of being in a special, secret bubble. No one else was here. No one else knew their silly stories or shared their quiet laughter. The world outside, with its busy streets and bustling offices, felt impossibly far away. Here, in the dim, unsteady glow, they were simply Oliver and Liam, suspended between floors and between their old, distant relationship and something new. The occasional stutter of the light was a gentle nudge, a reminder that this unique, shared moment was temporary, making it feel all the more precious. It was a small, flickering stage for their unexpected play. As the hours slowly stretched on, marked only by the occasional flicker of the emergency light, their conversation deepened. The silly stories faded into more meaningful talks. Oliver, usually so guarded, found himself sharing his quiet dream of one day writing a novel, a secret he'd kept even from his closest friends. He spoke of the fear of failure, the doubt that gnawed at him. Liam listened, his silhouette still, then surprised Oliver by admitting his own hidden desire to travel the world, to leave his stable job behind and simply explore. He spoke of the worry of disappointing his family, of stepping into the unknown. It's like there's this invisible wall, Liam mused, between what you do and what you really want to do. Oliver nodded, even though Liam couldn't see it. And everyone expects you to stay on your side of the wall. They talked about their worries, the small anxieties that kept them up at night. Oliver confessed his struggle with feeling lonely sometimes, despite being surrounded by people at work. Liam admitted to sometimes feeling like he was just going through the motions, wishing for more adventure. In the dim, enclosed space, the invisible walls that had separated them for so long truly began to crumble. They weren't just co-workers anymore. They were two people, vulnerable and honest, sharing the real parts of their lives that the office never saw. The stillness of the trapped elevator, rather than suffocating them, had given them the space to truly connect. Oliver checked his watch again, though he knew it was useless. The digital display was dark, a silent testament to the lost power. Yet, he didn't feel the familiar tug of impatience. Hours had undeniably passed since the elevator first lurched to a halt. The initial panic, the awkward silence, the polite work talk, all felt like distant memories. He glanced at Liam, whose silhouette was leaning comfortably against the wall, now telling a story about a misadventure during a camping trip. Oliver realized with a jolt how much he knew about Liam now. He knew about Liam's sister, about his love for hiking, about his secret wish to open a small coffee shop. He knew Liam's laugh was deep and genuine, and that he worried about the future of his elderly dog. And Liam, in turn, knew about Oliver's quiet passion for writing, his childhood fear of thunderstorms, and his surprisingly strong opinions on historical documentaries. They had filled the empty, suspended time with pieces of their lives, small and large, weaving a tapestry of understanding between them. It was a strange thought. They had spent more meaningful time together in this dark, cold box than in all their months as co-workers. The office, with its bright lights and busy schedules, had kept them strangers. The stillness and darkness of the elevator had, unexpectedly, brought them closer. This wasn't just a trap situation anymore. It was an accidental friendship blooming in the most unlikely of places. Liam was just starting to tell a story about a particularly memorable attempt at surfing when, with a soft thump, the emergency light above them flickered brightly, then clicked off completely. For a split second, they were plunged back into darkness. But this time it was different. Almost immediately, the elevator lights blazed to life, a sudden, blinding brightness after hours of dimness. A low, familiar hum started up from beneath their feet. The entire car gave a gentle shudder, a subtle movement that quickly grew into a smooth, upward glide. Oliver felt the floor beneath him shift, a sensation he hadn't realized he missed. He blinked, trying to adjust his eyes to the sudden light. Liam, too, looked a little dazed by the change, his face no longer a silhouette, but clearly visible in the bright light. "Well," Liam said, his voice a little softer than before, "looks like our adventure is over." Oliver nodded, a strange mix of relief and something else, something akin to a quiet sadness, washing over him. The elevator continued its ascent, picking up speed, a clear sign that the outside world was ready to reclaim them. The metallic smell of dust and old oil was replaced by the faint, cleaner scent of recycled office air. Their unique bubble was about to burst. With a soft chime, the elevator doors finally slid open. They revealed the familiar, brightly lit corridor of Oliver's floor, bustling with a few confused-looking employees and a security guard. The sudden rush of normalcy felt jarring after their long hours in the suspended box. Oliver and Liam stepped out, blinking in the bright lights, feeling a little disoriented. The security guard quickly approached, asking if they were all right. They both nodded, mumbling a quick yes, their eyes still adjusting. But as they stood there, surrounded by the usual office environment, they no longer felt like the distant co-workers they had been just hours before. Oliver looked at Liam, no longer seeing a shadowed silhouette, but a person whose dreams and worries he now knew. Liam met his gaze, a small, knowing smile on his face. They weren't strangers anymore. The shared experience, the unexpected talks in the dim light, had changed something fundamental between them. They had gone into the elevator as polite acquaintances and emerged as something much closer, bound by unique memory. The invisible walls that had kept them apart had truly vanished, replaced by a quiet understanding and a flicker of friendship. They were two people who had stumbled into a special moment, and it had woven them together in a way that regular office life never could. As the security guard finished his quick checkup and moved on, Oliver and Liam found themselves standing side by side in the bustling hallway. The sound of the office, once a background hum, now felt loud and a little overwhelming. They didn't need to speak. A glance passed between them, a look that held all the unspoken words of the past few hours. Oliver saw a new warmth in Liam's eyes, a recognition that went far beyond mere coworker politeness. Liam's gaze held a shared secret, a quiet understanding of the unexpected bond they had formed. It was a look that said, "We'll talk more." It was a promise of future conversations, not forced by a power outage, but chosen because they wanted to. The usual polite nod they would have exchanged before felt too small, too empty now. Instead, Oliver offered a small, genuine smile, and Liam returned it, a slight nod that felt more meaningful than any long speech. There was a quiet agreement hanging in the air. Their connection wouldn't end with the elevator ride. This wasn't just a temporary escape from their work lives. It was the beginning of something new, something real. The cold, dark elevator had given them a gift, a friendship forged in stillness. Oliver walked back to his desk, the familiar layout of his workspace now seeming sharper, clearer. He sat down, but the spreadsheets on his screen didn't capture his attention as they usually did. The hum of the office, which had once felt so normal, now sounded different, a little louder, less isolating. He glanced towards Liam's desk, a few rows away. Liam was there, already back at his computer, but Oliver knew their usual brief nods wouldn't be enough anymore. He thought about Liam's dream of traveling, his love for spicy food, his hearty laugh. These were not the thoughts he used to have about a coworker. A few minutes later, Oliver stood up and walked over to the kitchen, pretending he needed another coffee. He saw Liam there, filling his water bottle. Liam looked up, a real smile spreading across his face. "Hey," Liam said, a hint of something deeper in his voice than the usual office pleasantries. "Rough ride, huh?" Oliver chuckled. "Yeah, but interesting." He paused. "Are you still thinking about that Italian place? Maybe tomorrow." Liam's smile widened. "I'd like that, Oliver. I'd really like that." As they both returned to their desks, the office still looked the same, but for Oliver, everything had changed. The invisible walls were gone. The quiet moments at their desks no longer felt lonely, but held the promise of connection. The stillness of a trapped elevator had done more than just stop a ride. It had started a friendship.